Chapter 71. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Minato looked at Kisame in front of him with a pair of scarlet eyes. Kisame noticed Minato's gaze and couldn't help saying, "I'm very sorry, senior. My partner is sensible. Please forgive me." After saying that, he looked at Minato vigilantly without waiting for Minato to speak. Minato felt a little funny when he heard this. At the same time, he felt that some people's personalities could not be judged completely according to the animation. After all, you can see that the honest Kisame has begun to apologize. Minato waved his hand to signal Kisame and the others to leave. Seeing this, Kisame hurriedly thanked Minato, "Thank you." Then he carried the unconscious Uchiha Itachi and disappeared in a flash. Looking at Kisame who left, Minato put away his black robe, took off the mask on his face, and left here in a flash. Minato came to a tavern in the Land of Fire, looked around and walked in directly. When he walked in, he heard a woman's voice. "Shizune, don't stop me. I'm going to drink to my heart's content today." Minato looked in the direction of the voice and saw a beautiful woman with long golden hair tied into two ponytails. The woman had long golden hair tied into two ponytails. Her beautiful face was slightly flushed. Perhaps because of the wine, her bright eyes were slightly charming. There was a purple diamond mark on her forehead, which added a different kind of charm to her. The woman had a perfect body proportion, a pair of plump jade rabbits that were about to come out, making people want to touch them immediately, and her buttocks were so round that they looked like peaches, which made people imagine. Next to the blonde woman was a short-haired woman holding a pig in her arms. The woman was about 20 years old, with a beautiful face. Although her figure was not as good as the blonde woman in front, she was also a pretty good one. This blonde beauty is Tsunade, one of the 3 ninjas in the ninja world, and also a famous fat sheep in the legend. She is definitely the favorite type of gamblers, because she always loses every time she gambles and almost never wins. The short-haired woman next to her is Kato Shizune, the niece of Tsunade's former lover Kato Dan. The moment Minato saw Tsunade, he couldn't help but be attracted by Tsunade's stunning beauty and hot body. Minato looked at Tsunade in front of him, who looked like a woman in her 20s, and fell into deep thought. Remember that in the original book, Tsunade is now in her 40s. Then he heard Shizune say helplessly, "Tsunade-sama, we have no money now. If you drink like this, we may go hungry today." At this time, a gentle voice suddenly came from not far away. "You two can eat as much as you want today, and I will pay for everything." Tsunade's beautiful and charming face suddenly showed a touch of joy when she heard the words. She looked directly in the direction of the voice, and saw that the other person had a head of golden hair, which looked so masculine and handsome. Then she said, "Are you serious?" Shizune, who was standing by, saw Minato's appearance and couldn't help but said in her heart, "So handsome." Then she looked at the yellow hair carefully, and thought of a hot topic in the ninja world some time ago, that is, the news that the 4th generation Hokage of Konoha village, Minato Namikaze, was resurrected. Shizune suddenly remembered the blonde handsome guy on the table not far away. Who was the 4th generation Hokage of Konoha village, Minato Namikaze? When Shizune came to her senses, she saw that her own lady Tsunade had already arrived at Minato Namikaze's table. Tsunade sat directly opposite Minato, looking at Minato and said, "Are you serious?" Minato looked at Tsunade and was surprised. She was so close to him but she didn't recognize him. Minato didn't know whether Tsunade really didn't recognize him or pretended not to recognize him. At this time, a woman in a kimono ran over and bowed to Minato. This woman was none other than Tsunade's disciple and follower. Then a shy look appeared on her face. She was surprised. She didn't know why she was like this. Although she knew that the 4th Hokage was very handsome, why did she have the urge to throw herself into his arms? Minato also forgot that he had a special skill, friend of women, because he had been out for a while and hadn't met any women. Minato looked at Shizune who was running over. He saw that her little face was red and very beautiful, which made people want to take a bite. He couldn't help but walk to her side and reached out to touch her forehead. She was so nervous that she couldn't speak, and her head was about to smoke. At this time, the shy Shizen suddenly remembered and quickly reminded Tsunade, "Tsunade-sama, please hurry up, wake up. This is the fourth Hokage, did Tsunade really drink too much? She still hasn't reacted yet." Minato just kept looking at the charming Tsunade in front of him, without any sign of speaking. At this time, Tsunade heard Shizen's words, "You said he is the fourth Hokage of Konoha." Suddenly, Tsunade's beautiful eyes widened slightly, and the alcohol sobered up a lot in an instant. A pair of bright beautiful eyes slightly widened and looked up and down at Minato Namikaze in front of him and then said, "You are really Minato." Minato heard Tsunade's question, and his masculine and handsome face showed a warm smile and then said, "Yes. Sister Tsunade, I am resurrected." Tsunade heard Minato's words, nodded slightly, and her bright beautiful eyes looked at Minato's handsome face with some strangeness. "What's wrong with me? Why do I feel that Minato is so handsome and I am a little moved? No, what's wrong? Could it be that I want a man?" Minato ignored Tsunade and Shizen, who were slightly stunned, and shouted directly to the boss. "Boss, bring 2 more pots of good wine." Soon, 2 pots of good wine were sent upstairs. Tsunade, who was sitting opposite, saw that Namikaze Minato asked for 2 more pots of wine, and her beautiful eyes lit up slightly. Minato saw Shizen, who was still hugging the piglet, and said, "You shouldn't have eaten yet. Sit down and eat something." Shizen looked at Tsunade with her beautiful eyes. Tsunade noticed that someone was looking at her, and when she looked up, she saw Shizen looking at her with resentment. She remembered that because of her gambling, Shizen and she hadn't had a full meal for several days, so she continued, "Minato is not an outsider, just eat directly." Minato was a little surprised to see this scene, and remembered his special skill, the friend of women, and his face changed slightly. Chapter 72. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Minato raised his eyebrows slightly, and hurriedly called out to the system elf sleeping in his consciousness, "System elf Tsunade, what's going on? Didn't you say that the special skill of women's friend is only effective for women between the ages of 15 and 40? The system elf's beautiful eyes lit up slightly when he heard this, as if he had thought of something and said, "It should be because you are too handsome." Minato heard the system elf say this and thought to himself, "This guy, the system elf, is starting to fool me again." Thoughts returned to reality and looked at the 2 beauties in front of him, eating the delicious food on the table with relish, and couldn't help but smile slightly. At this time, Shizen, who was eating food on the side, thought that Minato had been smiling at himself and Tsunade-sama. He couldn't help but raise his head and said, "Why don't you eat, Hokage-sama?" Just after saying this, he couldn't help but cough twice in embarrassment, because the food on the table had been eaten by himself and Tsunade-sama. Then Tsunade on the side devoured the food on the table like a whirlwind, raised her head and looked at the 2 of them with a puzzled look and said, "Minato, Shizen, why don't you 2 eat?" At this time, Shizen on the side couldn't help but complain in her heart, "There is only 1 table of dishes, and Tsunade-sama has eaten it all by yourself. How can the 2 of us eat?" Minato glanced at Shizen, who was looking at him pitifully, and sighed helplessly, thinking that he really had to go hungry 9 times in 3 days with Tsunade. Look at how hungry the child is, and then asked the boss to serve a table of good wine and food, and Minato followed suit. Not long after the 3 of them finished their meal, Tsunade and Shizen sat there with a satisfied look on their faces, stroking their slightly bulging stomachs. Tsunade looked at Minato with her beautiful eyes, and Minato couldn't help but have a bad premonition when he saw Tsunade looking at him. Could she be asking him to borrow money? At this time, Tsunade said, "Minato, I want to borrow some money from you, is it okay?" Her beautiful and elastic face was full of expectation. Shizen on the side also blinked her bright eyes at Minato, and Minato was a little helpless. He had some money on him, which was also exchanged by him for killing so many wandering ninjas and bounty hunters, but since Tsunade asked, it was not impossible to lend it to her. However, with her fat sheep physique that would lose every time she gambled, no matter how much he took from her, it would basically be a waste of money, right? Thinking of this, Minato immediately had an idea in his mind, and looked at Tsunade in front of him with a smile and said, "Sister Tsunade, it's not impossible to lend it to you, but..." Minato didn't say anything else. He believed that Tsunade understood what he meant. Of course, Minato's implication was that I can lend you money, but you have to pay more. Tsunade, who was standing opposite, was a little excited when she heard this. She stood up from her seat, leaned forward slightly, and came to Minato with a charming face, staring at him. Because she leaned forward, Minato could clearly see the fullness of Tsunade's chest. A snow-white ravine. According to Minato's estimation, Tsunade's jade rabbit was only about the size of 36D. Even Minato felt a little unnatural when he saw this beautiful scenery. He really didn't expect Tsunade to be so bold and openly tempted him. Of course, Minato also knew that this was an unintentional act of Tsunade. It was really because he promised to lend money to Tsunade that Tsunade was too excited and lost her composure for a while. Just when the atmosphere was ambiguous, Shizen, who was standing beside them, blushed and looked shy, interrupted the two of them, saying that Tsunade-sama should pay attention to her image. Tsunade reacted suddenly after hearing this, like a frightened deer, and sat back in place, revealing a delicate and charming blush. Suddenly Tsunade reacted. What happened to her? She had only met Minato for half a day, and she always showed this little girl's attitude, but what Tsunade didn't know was that Minato was not only handsome, but also a cheater. With the skill of women's friend, the attractiveness increased by 50%, although the skill introduction also said that it was only effective for women between the ages of 15 and 40, but after all, it was a skill that the system got from another world, right? Minato looked at Tsunade's reaction and felt a little unwell again. It was not that he was afraid of Tsunade. After all, Tsunade was only in her 40s now, and if he included the more than 10 years of his death, he would be 36 or 37 years old now. It was okay for Tsunade to like him. After all, although she was a little older, her figure and appearance were still impeccable, and she was well maintained like a beauty in her 20s. I am afraid of those who are old and don't have any anti-aging techniques. Just thinking about it makes Minato shudder. You mean Rukia? She's over 90 years old, but she's a god of death. Her lifespan alone is 1,000 years. 90 years old is equivalent to a teenage girl in the world of death gods. Just when the three of them were in an awkward situation, a familiar system voice sounded in Minato's mind. Ding, congratulations to the host for finding a sign-in target, Tsunade, one of the three ninjas. Do you want to sign in? Minato was a little happy to hear this, and silently said to sign in. Ding, congratulations to the host for signing in successfully and getting the mysterious gift package. Signing in to get 10 points. Minato was a little surprised to hear this. The mysterious gift package. The last mysterious gift package was rewarded to one of his personal maids, that is, Kuchiki Rukia. How long has it been since the last time? This system has given me such a big gift again. How can Minato not be happy? This is a great fighting force. And the loyalty to me has reached 100%. At this time, the voice of the system was in Minato's mind again. Ding. Host, do you want to open the mysterious gift package? Minato was stunned when he heard that. How could this thing be opened in this place? Let alone that he was eating in a tavern, which was the wrong place. Even if Tsunade and Shizen were here, Minato couldn't open the mysterious gift package in front of them. Who knew what would come out of it? If a subordinate was opened, Minato really didn't know how to explain it to Tsunade in front of him. Was it magic? Was it a resurrection? Even if Minato said so, they wouldn't believe it. Besides, is there magic in the world of Naruto? Minato ignored the system and looked at Tsunade, who was shy across from him. Chapter 73. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That's Tsunade's sister. Are you okay? Tsunade was a little embarrassed. It's okay, what can happen to me? That's Tsunade's sister. Have you ever won when you gamble with others in the casino? Tsunade nodded. Minato's face became a little ugly, and he asked quickly, what's wrong? Minato restrained the coldness on his face and smiled. Nothing, I just suspect that they set a trap for you, otherwise you can't keep losing. Tsunade heard Minato's words, and a hint of anger appeared on her charming face. A pair of beautiful eyes showed a trace of anger, and her silver teeth were clenched. With a loud shout, at the same time, a pair of white jade hands slapped the table directly. The table that suffered an unexpected disaster was instantly turned into powder under Tsunade's slap. She couldn't help but curse in a low voice, "Those damn bastards dared to deceive me. I will skin them alive today." After saying that, Tsunade rushed to the casino angrily. Just as Tsunade was about to rush to the casino, a big hand suddenly rested on her shoulder. She was shocked and looked at the man smiling at her in front of her with incredible eyes. Is this still Minato? Even if Jiraiya and Orochimaru are one of the three ninjas with me, it is impossible to suppress me with just the power of the body. And Minato only put one palm on his shoulder and he couldn't move a bit, and he remembered that Minato had been dead for so many years, and his strength had not only not declined, but was even stronger than before. After all, Minato was resurrected some time ago, and the third-generation old man and the three old guys seemed to have died in Minato's hands. Tsunade also calmed down, and looked at Minato in front of her with a pair of beautiful eyes, as if to say, "You stopped me, but I need an explanation, otherwise I will never let you go." Minato looked at Tsunade in front of him and suddenly said, "Do you want to retaliate against them?" Tsunade heard this and said hatefully, "Of course I do, and think about how I turned into a little loli every day to avoid debt collectors in order to avoid gambling debts. God knows how she has been these days." Thinking of this, Tsunade can no longer bear the grievance in her heart, and she threw herself into Minato's arms and cried, releasing her grievances to the fullest. At that time, the three of them were eating in a restaurant, from the table being smashed into pieces, to Tsunade crying until Tsunade threw herself into Minato's arms. Shizune on the side looked at the two people hugging each other with a surprised face, and couldn't believe that this was still Tsunade, one of the three ninjas of Konoha. She actually threw herself into the arms of the fourth generation. Minato was also stunned when he saw this. He turned around and looked around. He saw a group of people looking at the three people with a look of watching a show. Minato was a little helpless. He looked at Tsunade crying in his arms and sighed. He took out 300 taels from his arms and threw them to the owner of the tavern. The owner saw this and quickly caught it. Minato said to Shizune, who was in a daze beside him, "Why are you still standing there?" Oh, Shizune, who was in a daze, heard Minato calling her and ran to Minato's side. Minato stretched out his left hand and put it on Shizune's shoulder. He directly used his flying thunder god and took the two out of the tavern and appeared in a deserted land. I don't know how long Tsunade cried, but she finally stopped crying and withdrew from Minato's arms. She slowly said, "Thank you, Minato." Minato shook his head slightly when he heard this, signaling Tsunade not to be polite, and looked at Tsunade and said, "Sister Tsunade, do you want to make money? I'll take you to make money." Tsunade was a little puzzled when she heard this, and didn't understand what Minato meant by making money. Shizune on the side also looked at Minato with a puzzled look, waiting for Minato's next words. Seeing this, Minato's handsome face showed a sunny smile. "Take me to the casino, I'll help you win it back." Tsunade was a little surprised when she heard this, and didn't understand why Minato was so confident. "You know, you often play in the casino, but basically you lose everything." Minato smiled slightly and said, "Because I'm the god of gamblers." Tsunade saw this and showed a hint of excitement on her face, and then said, "I'll lead the way." Soon, the three of them arrived in front of a casino. As soon as they walked in, Minato smelled the smell of money and couldn't help but think of the movies he watched in his previous life. The three of them heard a noise when they entered. "Bet big or small, hurry up. Bet big or small, buy it and leave it. Buy it and leave it." Minato used his own chakra to sense the surroundings and found that there were quite a lot of ninjas gambling in the casino. There were dozens of jonins, chunins, and genins. He sensed the chessboard again and found nothing unusual. Minato frowned and then used his spiritual pressure to find something strange. It turned out that there are mechanisms on these dice, and you can't find them without careful observation. Then Minato walked to a table and said, "I bet 100,000 taels." Everyone was a little surprised when they heard this. "Who is so rich, that this is 100,000 taels, which is enough for the food expenses of ordinary people for a year?" Tsunade on the side was also a little nervous when she saw this. Although Minato came here to gamble to help them win back the money they lost, but if they saw Minato lose money, they still felt a little bit reluctant. At this time, Shizune on the side reminded quietly, Hokage, if we can't do it, we should not gamble. After all, Tsunade-sama has almost never won a game in the casino. Minato said, I bet big. A group of guys couldn't help but show a touch of joy when they saw Minato betting big. A sturdy man said directly, since my little brother bets on big, let's bet on small. As everyone finished betting, the points of the dice were also presented in front of everyone. Seeing this scene, everyone was overjoyed, and there was a bit of gloating in their eyes when they looked at Minato. At this time, Tsunade on the side suddenly came over and said to Minato, why don't we not bet? Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw Tsunade coming. Damn, the big fat sheep actually came. Is this little brother the man of the big fat sheep? Tsunade felt a little uncomfortable listening to everyone's words. Just when she was about to open her mouth to refute, she felt a hand suddenly pulling her sleeves, and turned away with some curiosity. Then she saw Shizen leaning close to her ear and said, Tsunade-sama, have you forgotten what the fourth generation said to us before entering the casino again? Tsunade remembered it when she heard it, and the worried look on her face disappeared immediately. Then the gambling game went on for the second, third, fourth, and fifth times. Minato couldn't hold on to his smile anymore, and he said with a hint of anger, the fifth hand, 90 million taels, all bet. Shizen and Tsunade were shocked when they heard Minato say this. This was not just a little bit, right? The big man on the opposite side raised his mouth slightly when he heard Minato's words, revealing an extremely creepy smile. He cursed Minato in his heart, saying that this guy was also a fool. Then he controlled the mechanism and asked Minato, bet on big or small? Minato pretended to be very angry and said, bet on big. Hearing Minato say bet on big, the big man's smile gradually became crazy, and Minato also used his spiritual pressure to quietly sense it. At this time, he found that the original 9 points turned into 1 point. Minato's face turned cold, and he turned the 1 point back to the original 9 points. Chapter 74. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Minato used his spiritual pressure to change the number of points directly, and the modified points changed the number of points inside from the original 3 1 points to 3 3 points, and the number of points also changed from the original 3 points to 9 points, and the emotions of the crowd reached the peak. Open quickly. Yes, hurry up. Don't waste time. Minato on the side was speechless when he saw this scene, and suddenly thought of how such a scene had a sense of déjà vu, and suddenly a flash of inspiration came. Fuck. Why is it so familiar? Isn't this the routine of the Dragon King novel I read in my previous life? First, a group of blind cannon fodder villains came to cause trouble, and then the Dragon King smiled crookedly and started the familiar routine of pretending to be awesome and slapping in the face. Then a group of spectators were there to sigh at the protagonist's awesomeness. I didn't expect that I would have the opportunity to experience the treatment of the male protagonist of a cool novel after traveling to the world of Naruto. Minato said calmly, can we open the cup now? Everyone hurriedly urged him to do so, wanting to see the result of the last round. Shizen and Tsunade, who were standing by, also stared at the gambling table in front of them nervously, fearing that someone was playing tricks. Minato was amused when he saw their looks, but he understood in a moment. If he hadn't reminded Tsunade, she wouldn't have realized that it wasn't that she had bad luck, but that these guys were cheating her. The cup was opened, and everyone was shocked to see the scene in front of them, because the number of points displayed on the dice was exactly 3 threes, which was 9 points. The guy who was the dealer immediately showed a gloomy look on his face when he saw it was 9 points. Tsunade and Shizen saw this and their beautiful and attractive faces showed a hint of excitement, and they shouted. We won. Then the two girls hugged each other and said excitedly, Shizen, did you see that? We won. Minato is really awesome, Omega, this is 90 million taels. Minato listened to the two people's words and twitched his mouth. What do you mean I'm awesome? Can you speak in full sentences? People who don't know would think I did something to you too. Gnashed his teeth and said, you cheated me, and your angry expression and irrational look just now were all pretended, just for this last game. Seeing this, Minato smiled and said, how can this be said that I was lucky and won a game by chance? After all, I lost a full 9 games before. Besides, everyone's eyes are sharp, don't you think so? Minato shouted to the crowd. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Yes. That blonde little brother did lose a lot of games before. At this time, a woman said indignantly, "It's the blonde handsome guy who keeps losing." When Minato saw this scene, he sighed in his heart and saw that he was not the protagonist, that if he was the protagonist, he should be criticized by everyone now. At this time, Tsunade on the side said excitedly, "Give us the money quickly." At this time, another middle-aged man came over and said that the three of you would be here soon. Not long after, a man came over with 2 boxes of banknotes. Minato smiled slightly and said, "Thank you," then used the ninjutsu scroll to pack it up. The 3 of them were satisfied and left the casino. A subordinate looked at the backs of the 3 people leaving the casino and couldn't help asking, "Boss, we have suffered a big loss this time. We lost 90 million taels, which is our income for 3 months. The middle-aged man frowned slightly when he heard his subordinate's words and asked, "Then what should we do according to you?" The man heard this. A trace of cruelty flashed in his eyes. "Why don't we kill and rob?" The middle-aged man on the side was so upset that he couldn't help but said, "Do you know who they are?" The middle-aged man looked at his subordinates who still didn't know, so he explained. "The blonde woman is Tsunade Princess and the Princess of the Land of Fire. As for the blonde man, he should be the 4th Hokage Namikaze who has been in the ninja world for a while. So do you want to die?" The subordinate heard this and his face was a little scared. If he had acted impulsively at that time, would he have died? At this time, the subordinate said, "Then did we offend the Princess of the Land of Fire and the 4th Hokage of Konoha village at once today?" The middle-aged man heard this and his face showed a thoughtful look, but after a while he spoke slowly. "I don't think so. The reason why the 4th Hokage was able to defeat us was because he discovered our mechanism. Didn't he say that at the time? The angry expression on his face before was to lure you in, to make you mistakenly think that he had lost his mind because of the defeat. I'll take this opportunity to play a big one with you guys. This way, I can not only win back what I had before, but also make a lot of money. Why not do it? Pass it on." The Princess of the Land of Fire, Princess Tsunade, and the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, must be treated as guests of honor when they come to the casino next time. On the other side, 3 people were walking on the street, and Tsunade was excitedly holding a scroll, which contained the 90 million taels that Minato won in the casino. Then Tsunade said to Minato, "By the way, Minato, you take 60 million taels of the money this time, and the remaining 30 million taels are for me and Shizune." Shizune felt a little embarrassed when she saw this scene. It is obvious that all this money was won by Minato himself, and he and Tsunade-sama took it away for no reason. It is really unreasonable to take the money of the 4th Hokage-sama. Tsunade seemed to have noticed Minato's gaze on her, and her face was unconsciously a little hot, so she said, "Minato, all this money was won by you. It is unreasonable for me to take so much money from you for no reason. Then you can make a condition. As long as it is not excessive, I can agree to it." Minato smiled slowly when he heard it, and looked up and down at Tsunade's figure and charming face and said, "Really? Sister Tsunade?" Tsunade's face became redder when she heard it, but she still raised her head and showed her fair and slender jade strength and said proudly, "Of course, I am the Princess of the Land of Fire, and I also have the title of Sannin. Can I lie to you? Sister Tsunade, you should also know the current situation of Konoha. There are almost no Kage-level strongmen in the entire Konoha village. And that is..." Minato paused for a moment here, waiting for Tsunade to continue. Sure enough, Tsunade saw that Minato suddenly stopped talking, and was a little anxious, so she asked, "What else?" When Minato heard Tsunade's words, the smile on his face gradually disappeared, and he said with a serious face, "I have a feeling that Konoha village will experience an unprecedented crisis soon, and Konoha village will be at risk of disappearing in the ninja world at that time." Tsunade's charming face showed a solemn look, and her beautiful eyes stared at Minato Namikaze in front of her, as if she was afraid that Minato would hide something. Little did you know that all this was deliberately said by Minato to trick Tsunade back to the village. Minato would not know whether Konoha village would be destroyed, but Konoha village was still alive until the unburned Boruto. As a time traveler, Minato also wanted to see what would happen if he taught Naruto and Sasuke, the protagonists of the Naruto world, from now on. In addition, if the Six Paths Sage gave them the plug-in, the Six Paths power, and if the Six Paths had not disappeared, and the two had not fought in the Valley of the End, and no one had lost an arm, could they beat Momoshiki in fusion alone, and Ishiki Otsutsuki later? Minato was looking forward to this, because in his previous life, whether he was reading novels or reading on that forum, there were readers who said that Naruto in the Valley of the End was not as strong as Naruto in his middle age, and the same was true for Sasuke, but Minato was looking forward to whether it was what they said. Then he looked at Tsunade, who was staring at him, and said, "My condition is very simple. I want to ask Sister Tsunade to return to the village to serve as the director of the medical department." Speaking of this, Minato narrowed his blue eyes, which were as bright as stars, and slowly walked to Tsunade's side. He whispered softly in her ear, "After all, you don't want the Konoha village established by the first Hokage to disappear in the ninja world." Chapter 75. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tsunade heard this, her beautiful eyes instantly turned cold as a knife, and she punched Minato. Minato's blue eyes suddenly shrank when he saw this. He didn't know what Tsunade wanted to do, so he raised one hand and met Tsunade's fist. There was a loud bang, and the two fists met. The huge force caused a wave of air around, smoke and dust rolled, and the ground under the feet of the two had already broken into pieces. Shizune, who was standing aside, saw this scene, and her cute little face turned pale, and her bright eyes were full of confusion and worry. She didn't understand why Tsunade suddenly attacked the fourth Hokage. At the same time, she was also worried that the two would get angry because of this. After all, it was Tsunade who started it first. What if the fourth Hokage got angry because of this? Although Tsunade was very strong, she couldn't be the opponent of the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze. After all, Minato was the man who killed the third Hokage and the Konoha elders. When the smoke cleared, Minato nonchalantly blocked Tsunade's punch with 60% of her strength. Tsunade was stunned by this scene, and her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. She couldn't believe what was happening in front of her. You have to know who she is. She is the granddaughter of the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, and Tsunade, one of the three ninjas of Konoha village. Although she didn't use her full strength in the punch just now, she also used 60% of her strength. Even Jiraiya and Orochimaru, who are also one of the three ninjas, didn't dare to take her punch. Minato looked at Tsunade, who was doubting her life in front of him, and his masculine and handsome face gradually became gloomy. There was a trace of anger and confusion in his blue eyes. He didn't understand why Tsunade wanted to attack him. At this time, Tsunade on the opposite side finally reacted and noticed Minato's disappeared smile and icy eyes. Tsunade's heart was panicked for no reason, and she hurriedly said to Minato, "Sorry, Minato, I didn't mean it. I just used to fight Jiraiya and Orochimaru." Minato nodded slightly and said, "I know, but I don't want it to happen again next time. I hope you can understand what I said." Tsunade nodded quickly and said, "I know I won't do it again in the future. I mainly said that you said that the wood behind you village will be destroyed. I couldn't hold back for a while, so I wanted to test your strength. After all, you killed the old man of the third generation and that old thing of Shimura Danzo, right? Just now I heard you say that there will be a powerful enemy later, so I wanted to test your strength and see how strong you are." At this time, Minato, who pretended to be serious, suddenly laughed. Seeing this, Tsunade realized that she was fooled by this guy, and her beautiful eyes were full of anger at this abominable bastard. "I want to beat you up." While speaking, he punched Minato. Minato saw Tsunade's attack coming and slightly sidestepped it. Shizune on the side looked at the two people chasing and playing and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After all, the man in front of them was the fastest man in the ninja world. How could Tsunade-sama hit the other party? Then Minato said, "Okay, we should go back." Shizune, who was standing by, was puzzled. She blinked her bright eyes and asked, "Go back? Where should we go?" Tsunade said slowly that they would go back to Konoha. Suddenly, she remembered something and said with some embarrassment, "I don't want the 30 million taels from Minato." Tsunade reluctantly handed the scroll with the money to Minato. Minato didn't take the scroll from Tsunade, but frowned slightly. Tsunade saw this and looked a little lonely. Her charming eyes lost their former colors. Her eyes were like the continuous drizzle in winter, lifeless and empty. She forced a bitter smile and said, I suffer from hemophobia. I am a medical ninja but I suffer from hemophobia. Isn't this a very ironic thing?" Minato fell silent after hearing this, not knowing how to comfort Tsunade, because Tsunade was in a very unstable state just now. If Minato remembered correctly, the reason for his hemophobia was because of his brother Senju Nawaki's death. When he saw blood, he would lose all his fighting power and tremble all over. Therefore, he could not move. Minato slowly walked in front of Tsunade and stretched out his hands and placed them on Tsunade's shoulders. Tsunade felt that Minato's palms were on her shoulders and wanted to break free, but she didn't expect that Minato's hand was so strong. Unable to break free with her own strength, she had to let Minato's hands rest on her. On his shoulders, Minato's blue eyes revealed a hint of determination, and then he looked closely at Tsunade's beautiful eyes and said slowly, "Hemophobia is not impossible to control. Sister Tsunade, don't rush to refuse. I don't want you to go to the battlefield, but I want you to return to Konoha to help Konoha," Minato said to Tsunade in front of him. Konoha has just emerged from decay, without the control of old guys like Shimura Danzo and Sarutobi Hiruzen. What Konoha needs most now is some fresh blood, and whether it is fresh blood or talent. They are what Konoha needs, right? You can also choose to accept some disciples, which is also good. Chapter 76. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tsunade, who was standing by, shook her head slightly when she heard what Minato said, but she didn't say anything. Shizune opened her mouth slightly and wanted to say something, but she didn't say anything in the end. Minato saw Tsunade like this, and shook his head helplessly, thinking, "It seems that the death of my brother Senju Nawaze and Kato Dan has a great impact on Tsunade," that he couldn't help but sigh and said, "You and Shizune take these 30 million taels." After that, Minato thought about using the Flying Thunder God technique to leave here and return to Konoha village. After all, he hasn't been home for many days, and he really misses home. Before Minato left, Tsunade's voice sounded again. "Give me some time, I'll think about it, and I'll go to Konoha village to find you when I get the result." Minato was a little surprised when he heard this, and didn't understand why Tsunade suddenly changed her mind, but for Minato, this is a good thing, right? So, he turned around and looked at Tsunade and Shizune in front of him and said, "Goodbye, Sister Tsunade and Shizune." After saying that, she disappeared without waiting for the two to respond. Shizune, who was standing by, was surprised to see that her small mouth could swallow an egg, and said in surprise, "Sister Tsunade, the fourth Hokage has disappeared." Tsunade rolled her eyes at her speechlessly and said, "Have you forgotten? Minato is the golden flash of Konoha. The second grandfather's Flying Thunder God technique is used by Minato to perfection." Shizune nodded as if she suddenly understood when she heard Tsunade say this. On the other side, when Minato returned to Konoha, he saw that the poor people of Konoha were all busy, looking prosperous. At this time, civilians with good eyesight discovered Minato and everyone greeted him enthusiastically. "How are you, fourth Hokage?" "Hello, Lord Hokage." Minato walked to the Hokage's office under the greetings of everyone. He saw a woman with a ninja forehead protector and a fox mask on her face. She was curvy and curvy. Her umbu costume did not affect her beauty at all. Minato remembered that the woman with purple hair seemed to be called Yuzuki Yugao. Seeing Minato coming, she knelt on one knee and said, "Lord Hokage." Seeing this, Minato waved his hand to signal the other party to stand up and talk. Seeing this, Yuzuki Yugao also slowly stood up and followed Minato Namikaze into the Hokage's office. Minato saw Yuzuki Yugao followed him in, so he slowly said, "Did anyone come to the Hokage's office during my absence?" Yuzuki Yugao hesitated when she heard this, not knowing whether to say. Minato smiled slightly at this. "Don't be nervous, just say it directly." Hokage, Minister Kakashi came to the Hokage's office twice before and said he was helping you with some documents, but he never came again. Hearing this, Minato nodded slightly and said to Yuzuki Yugao, "Thank you for your hard work, you can go down first." After hearing this, Yuzuki Yugao responded and closed the door of the Hokage's office and walked out. Minato sat in the Hokage's seat thinking about the next plan. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Minato frowned slightly. It was already evening. Who would come to see him? But he still said, "Come in." The person who came was a boy of 12 or 13 years old, with flowing black hair, a cool expression, and a pair of black eyes that revealed the desire to become stronger. This person was none other than the orphan of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Sasuke. Minato was a little curious when he saw that it was Uchiha Sasuke who came in. He didn't understand why Uchiha Sasuke came to the Hokage's office to find him. Uchiha Sasuke suddenly knelt on his knees, looked up at Minato and said, "Hokage, please accept me as your apprentice. I want to learn from you." Minato couldn't sit still when he heard that Sasuke wanted to learn from him. He also wanted to worship him as his teacher. Then he looked at Uchiha Sasuke who was kneeling on the ground. Minato coughed slightly and said, "You get up first. I want to know why you want to worship me as your teacher." Minato would never accept Uchiha Sasuke as his apprentice before he figured out his intentions. Didn't he see that his predecessor's family was broken up because he accepted Uchiha Obito, an ungrateful wolf? His wife Uzumaki Kushina and himself both died at the hands of the Nine Tails, but the culprit of everything was Uchiha Obito, an ungrateful wolf. Whatever you say, it's all for the purpose of creating a world with Lin. In Minato's opinion, it's all bullshit. If you really want to revive Lin, just find Noara Rin's body and find a living person as a sacrifice to perform the impure world reincarnation. Why don't you let Nagato use the pupil technique of the Samsara Eye, the Samsara natural technique, to revive Lin? In Minato's opinion, Uchiha Obito is just escaping from reality and likes falsehood, otherwise he would not have awakened the eye technique of Kamui, which is specifically used for escape. After all, the Uchiha clan's Sharingan is the eye that reflects the soul, right? At this time, Uchiha Sasuke, who was kneeling on the ground, felt the murderous intent released by Minato, and his clothes were wet with cold sweat. Minato's pair of blue eyes flickered, and he looked at Sasuke and said, "Tell me why you want to be my disciple." Sasuke was very excited when he heard Minato's words. Knowing that he had the opportunity to be his disciple, he hurriedly said, "Hokage, I want to become stronger. I want to kill Uchiha Itachi, avenge our Uchiha clan, and avenge my parents." When Sasuke said this, he didn't notice that his dark eyes had turned extremely red, and the two Magatama in his eyes were spinning wildly in his eyes. Soon, the double Magatama in his eyes turned into a 3 Magatama Sharingan. Minato was a little surprised to see this scene. He didn't expect Sasuke to open the 3 Magatama Sharingan just like this. It seems that Sasuke is very talented. However, he was relieved when he remembered that Uchiha Sasuke was the reincarnation of Indra Chakra. Minato felt very strange. Obviously, Sasuke knew that the extermination of the Uchiha clan was planned by the Third Hokage and the Konoha elders. Uchiha Itachi, the filial son, was just an executor. In the original work, Sasuke knew all this after Uchiha Itachi died, but now because of his intervention, Sasuke knew all this in advance. Sarutobi Hiruzen and the Konoha elders have been slaughtered by him. Since you already know everything, and you also know that Uchiha Itachi did all this for you. But why did you still want to kill him? You should also know the relationship between me and Fugaku Ichimi, so I can't say much about the two of you directly. The anger on Sasuke's face gradually disappeared when he heard this, and his eyes became as cold as a pool of bottomless dead water. Sasuke looked at Minato calmly and said, "Hokage, I understand that everything Uchiha Itachi did was for me to survive, but don't you think this price is too heavy? If the Uchiha clan really went to war with Konoha village at that time, would there really be no chance of winning?" Minato shook his head when he heard this, and then nodded slowly. A gleam of brilliance flashed in Minato's eyes and he said, "If your brother didn't choose the village at that time, but chose to go to war between the two families, the final result would be that the Third Hokage and the Uchiha clan would both suffer losses. Chapter 77. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Minato changed the subject, but what? Sasuke asked hurriedly. After hearing this. Minato looked at Sasuke and drank a sip of water, then continued. Konoha village is the third generation and the elders. You Uchiha clan can indeed fight, but what if they have external aid that you don't know about? Looking at Sasuke with an unbelievable face, he smiled and said, otherwise, do you think that the Nightlight Uchiha Itachi who exterminated the clan back then could kill the entire Uchiha clan alone? You Uchiha are the only two large clans in Konoha village. There are thousands of people alone, in fact. Minato still admires Sasuke from the bottom of his heart. Do you think there are normal people in the Naruto world? Of course there are, Uchiha Sasuke is one of them. Isn't it normal to avenge his parents and family? At this time, Uchiha Sasuke on the side asked again, Hokage, please accept me as your apprentice. Minato was completely helpless when he saw this, so he said, why don't you go to Kakashi to practice? I feel that Kakashi's strength is not enough to defeat that man, so I want to worship you as my teacher. After all, you killed the 3 generations of the strongest Hokage in history. Minato shook his head and said when he heard Sasuke, then you should go to Kakashi first and learn the skills of using the Sharingan from him. Now Kakashi has opened the legendary eye of your Uchiha clan, the Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke heard Minato say, Kakashi opened the Uchiha clan's Mangekyo Sharingan and the whole person became a little unwell. As far as he knows, in addition to the legendary ninja world Shura Uchiha Madara, the original Uchiha clan also opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi Uchiha and Shisui Uchiha. Now you tell Sasuke that an outsider of the Uchiha clan has opened the Mangekyo Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. How can Sasuke not be surprised and shocked when he hears this? But Sasuke could never have imagined that Kaka not only opened the Mangekyo Sharingan, but also became the direct bloodline of the Uchiha clan. After all, Uchiha Madara's blood was injected into Kakashi's body, otherwise Kakashi would not be able to close the Sharingan. Sasuke nodded slightly after hearing this, bowed deeply to Minato, and then left the Hokage's office. Minato looked at Uchiha Sasuke leaving the Hokage's office and sighed, Sasuke. It's not that I don't want to accept you as my apprentice, but there is a fucking tradition in the Naruto world. It's the apprentice who killed the teacher. Besides, in the original work, you also killed Orochimaru, who taught you ninjutsu. He should also be your life mentor. And Nagato killed Jiraiya. There are countless examples like this in the ninja world, right? Oh, right. In the original novel, Sasuke almost killed his teacher, Hatake Kakashi. If it weren't for Kakashi's passive bug that allowed him to fight anyone, he would have been killed by you. Minato suddenly remembered that he seemed to have received a mysterious gift package from the system when he was with Tsunade. Last time, he directly summoned Rukia from the mysterious gift package. This time, he didn't know if it was a character or something else. Minato immersed himself in the communication system and said, the system opens the mysterious gift package. Ding is opening the mysterious gift bag. Host, please wait a moment. I saw a burst of colorful light around. I saw the person with black and smooth hair braided into 2 pigtails, placed on both sides of the chest vertically down. A pair of clear and beautiful eyes looked at everything in front of her with a silly face. The gentle face was faintly flushed, making people want to take a bite. She was wearing a white captain's haori embroidered with cherry blossoms and a black death suit. There was a war sword hanging on her waist. It should be her war sword, Nishizuku. Minato was also very surprised that it would be her, the great villain of the world of death thousands of years ago, the current captain of the 4th division of the GODI 13, Shigehana Yachiru, Shigehana Retsu. When Shigehana Retsu saw Minato, her beautiful eyes flickered slightly, and I don't know what she was thinking. Minato knew that it was his turn to perform, so he looked at Shigehana Retsu with a gentle face and said, long time no see. Captain Shigeka. Shigeka Retsu smiled softly, yes. It's been a long time since I last saw Vice Captain Minato. Minato smiled and said nothing, knowing that this must be a false plot created by the system, then Shigeka Retsu looked at Minato with his beautiful eyes and asked slowly. Vice Captain Minato, I remember you seem to have died during a wedding and funeral practice more than 100 years ago. But how did you come back to life, alive? What is this place? Seeing this, Minato knew that he should explain to the seemingly gentle captain of the 4th Division. Don't be deceived by her harmless appearance. After all, who would have thought that such a beautiful woman would be a murderer in the world of death? Shigenohana Retsu looked at Minato and felt a strange feeling in his heart. It was as if he felt that Minato was so kind and close to him. Fortunately, as a death god, he was very powerful and suppressed the strange feeling. Shigenohana Retsu looked at Minato and sat down on the sofa next to him. Seeing this, Shigenohana Retsu's beautiful eyes flickered slightly. I don't know what she was thinking about, and she turned around and sat on the sofa. Looking at Minato seriously, Minato coughed twice. Looking at Shigenohana Retsu sitting there like a lady opposite, he slowly said, people in this world mainly practice ninjutsu. This world is also called the ninja world. The fighting style of ninjas is to release various ninjutsu based on the chakra extracted from themselves. There are many countries in the ninja world, among which the larger countries are the 5 most powerful countries, namely the Fire Country, the Lightning Country, the Wind Country, the Earth Country and the Water Country. Each country has a ninja village to protect the country from being invaded by other countries. Of course, the rulers of these countries will provide financial support to the ninja villages in this country. The relationship between the two of them is a relationship of mutual help. I will provide you with funds to help your ninja village develop and cultivate talents, but you must also protect our country from being invaded by other countries. Listening to Minato's explanation, Shigehana Retsu slowly said, I probably understand what you said. Chapter 78. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Then Unohana Retsu looked at Minato Namikaze who was sitting opposite with her beautiful eyes as gentle as water and said. After hearing what you said, Vice Captain Minato, I feel that it seems that people in this world cannot live for more than 100 years. Minato smiled bitterly and said slowly. You are right. In this ninja world, the average age of ninjas is no more than 20 years old. Even children of 6 or 7 years old have to go to the battlefield. The gentle and lovely elder sister was shocked when she heard it. Obviously, she did not expect that the ninja world she had just arrived in was not much less bloody than the world of death. Then Minato looked at Unohana Retsu and said, It's getting late. I'll find you a place to live. So Minato led Unohana Retsu to the door of his house. Unohana Retsu looked at everything around him curiously, but he did not wander around, but walked side by side with Minato on the streets of Konoha village. At this time, the Konoha civilians on both sides of the road saw that Minato went out and brought back a woman, and such a beautiful and gentle woman. There was an uproar, and then they gathered together to discuss. And some Konoha civilians couldn't help but give Minato a thumbs up. I envy Minato's good fortune. A few days ago, a beautiful girl with a lovely appearance went out for only half a month and brought back such a beautiful woman. Minato's face became a little embarrassed when he heard the words of the Konoha civilians. Shige no Hana Retsu on the side saw this scene and covered her mouth with her hands and laughed. Shige no Hana Retsu was a very smart woman. She saw Minato's embarrassment and took the initiative to say, It can be seen that this village has become very good under your governance. Soon Minato and Shige no Hana Retsu came to the door, knocked on the door and heard footsteps coming from inside the door. Soon the door opened, and a woman in a cyan dress came out. Her skin was whiter than snow, and she wore cotton slippers with rabbit ears on her feet. The woman who opened the door was Rukia. When Rukia saw Minato, her cute and delicate face was happy at first, and then she noticed that there was someone standing next to Minato, and it was a very beautiful woman. When Rukia saw the face of the woman in front of her, she couldn't help but exclaimed, Captain Shigenohana. Shigenohana Retsu on the side was also shocked to see Rukia and said, Rukia, the third officer of the 6th team. Minato coughed slightly beside him, interrupting their conversation. Rukia realized that she was just excited. Brother Minato must not have eaten yet after coming back so late, so she ran to the kitchen quickly. Minato and Shigenohana Retsu looked at each other and didn't speak in tacit understanding. Minato communicated with the system, and the system spirit yawned and looked at Minato and said, "What's wrong?" Minato was a little helpless when he saw this. "Whose system has a sleeping function? You said that a new batch of products would appear in the system mall in a while. How about that one?" The system spirit said, "It's still being worked on. I'll let you know when it's done. And don't you want to check the attributes of the subordinate you got from the mysterious gift bag?" Minato remembered that he hadn't checked the character attribute panel of Shige no Hana Retsu yet. He didn't even know where he was after summoning loyalty, current status, weapons, and a series of war spirit swords. The system wizard opened the character panel. A virtual character panel immediately appeared in front of Minato. Name, Shigeno Hana Retsu. Strength, 6 paths level. Weapon, Zanpakuto Nishizuku. Spiritual pressure, super captain level. Kido, use any Heido below level 96. Shirkai, unknown. Bankai, all. Power, no suppression. Loyalty, 100. Minato was very happy when he looked at Shigeno Hana Retsu's character panel. He didn't expect Shigeno Hana Retsu to have the strength of the 6 paths level, but this should be Shigeno Hana Retsu's strength after opening Bankai. Minato frowned deeply when he looked at Shigeno Hana Retsu's Shirkai, not understanding why he couldn't check the Shirkai. System, come out. The system wizard slowly appeared again after hearing this. She had messy long golden hair and looked like a homegirl. "Why can't I check the Shirkai of Shigeno Hana Retsu?" The system elf heard this, gently touched her fair chin with her jade hand, thought for a moment and said, "It should be that Shirkai of Shigeno Hana Retsu has never been used." Minato was a little surprised when he heard this and then said, "You mean Shirkai of Shigeno Hana Retsu has never been used, so you don't have Shigeno Hana Retsu?" System. "I don't read much, so don't lie to me, okay?" The system elf smiled beautifully when he heard it, and slowly walked to Minato, tidying up Minato's messy clothes with a pair of jade hands, and looked at Minato with a pair of beautiful eyes and said, "I can't lie to anyone but you. After all, you are my host, right?" Minato nodded slightly when he heard it and said, "That's true." Then he took a few steps back and left the system space with his consciousness. In reality, Shige no Hana Retsu looked at everything around him and the food brought by Rukia in front of him, and a moving smile appeared on his gentle face. Just when Minato saw it, Minato couldn't help but say, "Captain Shige no Hana, you were really beautiful when you smiled just now." When Shige no Hana Retsu heard Minato say that he was beautiful, he couldn't help but smile slightly and said, "You are so slick. I don't know how many girls have been deceived by you," he said, and glanced at the kitchen. Minato was speechless when he heard this. This was absolutely amazing. How could this be called a lie? This is human nature. Things between men and women are consensual. At this time, Rukia also brought up the prepared meals. The meals were very rich, including spicy fish, sweet rice balls, grilled steak, and braised beef. Minato looked at the table of food in front of him, and glanced at Rukia sitting next to him. He didn't understand why this girl made so many delicious dishes. Perhaps she felt Minato's gaze, and her delicate and cute little face turned red. Then she explained, "Have you forgotten? Brother Minato, today is the day when Naruto and Mr. Jiraiya return to the village after training." Minato was a little surprised when he heard this. He didn't expect time to pass so quickly. A month had passed in such a short time. Hana Retsu at the side was puzzled when he saw this. He just didn't understand who Jiraiya and Naruto were that Rukia was talking about. Namikaze Minato noticed the strange look on Hana Retsu's face and knew that she had a problem, so he took the initiative to say, "Mr. Jiraiya is my teacher, and Naruto is my son." There was a knock on the door. Rukia said, "Brother Minato, you can chat with Captain Shigeno Hana first. I'll go and see." Then she went to open the door in her cotton slippers. Soon, a boy who looked about 13 years old came in. He had golden hair, a ninja forehead protector, and 6 golden whiskers on his young face. This person is none other than Minato's adopted son, Uzumaki Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto was stunned when he came in, but then he reacted and said excitedly, "Dad, you're back." Seeing this, Minato smiled on his handsome face. Then Naruto saw Shigehana Retsu sitting beside him, and his blue eyes shrank. Naruto reacted and smiled at Shigehana Retsu. Shigehana Retsu smiled at Naruto when he saw this, and it was this smile that made Naruto feel dazed. Looking at Shigehana Retsu, he said, "Big sister, are you my father's friend? You are so beautiful, just like my mother." Shigehana Retsu was immediately interested when she heard this. She could feel that there were two souls living in this child's body, but Minato didn't take the initiative to tell her, and she was embarrassed to ask if it was not the case. After all, it was someone else's family affair. At this time, Rukia's bright eyes dimmed slightly when she saw this. Minato noticed Rukia's abnormality and reached out to hold Rukia's slightly cold little hand. Then Naruto continued, "Generally speaking, whether it's big sister, mother, or sister Rukia, you are all beauties of the same level, but your temperaments are different. Sister Rukia is the petite and cute type." Chapter 79. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Naruto's words were beautiful, and even Rukia's eyes, which had been somewhat dull, regained their spirits, and her eyes towards Naruto became softer. Even Shigehana Retsu, a god of death who had lived for thousands of years, couldn't help but laugh at Naruto's words, so he looked at Naruto in front of him with a smile and said, "Little guy, I'm very happy that you call me sister, but you have to call me auntie from now on, okay?" Naruto was a little puzzled when he heard this, but he was still very tactful and didn't ask aloud. Instead, he said seriously, "I know, auntie." Shigehana Retsu smiled beautifully when he heard this and touched Naruto's little head. Naruto looked at this very beautiful woman, but for some reason, Naruto always felt that this gentle woman gave him a very scary feeling, and even the nine-tailed fox in his body felt scared. In the sealed space, a man and a fox looked at the screen in front of them with a solemn look on their faces. The nine-tailed fox, with a body as big as a mountain, lay in the sealed space, looking at the screen in front of him and said slowly, "I can feel that the woman is very dangerous, extremely dangerous. I feel that the woman should be able to kill me and disappear forever." When Kushina Uzumaki heard the nine-tailed fox say this, her beautiful and delicate face showed a thoughtful look. The nine-tailed fox on the side did not disturb him when he saw this. He knew that with Kushina Uzumaki's intelligence, he would definitely be able to guess something. If even Kushina Uzumaki couldn't guess it, it would be even more hopeless. After a while, Kushina Uzumaki said, "The power used by this woman named Imo no Hana Retsu should be the same as Minato's, but is this a ninjutsu? It's a bit incredible." Then Uzumaki Kushina waved her hand and said, "Don't think too much." Speaking of this, Uzumaki Kushina's figure slowly disappeared. Although Uzumaki Kushina also guessed roughly, she had no other choice. He only hoped that Minato could revive her as soon as possible, so that she could live with her husband and son. Although Kushina Uzumaki knows that the relationship between the two women and Minato is not ordinary, she is already dead and has become more open-minded about many things. She doesn't care how many women are around Minato, but she said she doesn't know that Minato has become ridiculously strong after the system's several amplifications. Are they in any danger here? Kushina Uzumaki can see that Minato and the two women are very good to Naruto. Outside the sealed space, Minato and his friends were sitting at the dining table at home preparing to eat. Minato slowly said, "By the way, Naruto, why are you the only one back? Where is Jiraiya-sensei? Why are you the only one back?" Naruto ate the braised pork and said, "The lecherous sage said he would not come back. He was going to see beautiful women and collect materials, so he let me go home alone first." Minato's mouth twitched when he heard this. At this time, Rukia on the side slowly said, "It should be that Mr. Jiraiya feels that I am the only woman in the family, and it is not convenient for Brother Minato to be away. After all, even if Brother Minato does not leave the village, he should be very busy." At this time, Shigehana Retsu on the side heard this. Her beautiful eyes lit up slightly, and then looked at Minato and said, "Minato, otherwise I will go with you to the Hokage's office tomorrow to help you deal with the documents." Minato's vast eyes lit up slightly when he heard this. This relationship is good. Remember how the saying in the previous life came about, when there is something to do, the secretary does it, and when there is nothing to do, the secretary does it. Minato thought and couldn't help but glance at Shigeno Hanaretsu. Not bad, not bad. He nodded slightly. This is the right person to be his secretary. Soon everyone finished dinner. Naruto waved goodbye to Minato and the others and then disappeared. Minato was a little amused when he saw this scene. Of course, the place where Naruto lives now must be the residence of Shimura clan and Shimura Danzo. Because of Shigeno Hanaretsu's arrival, Minato definitely couldn't sleep with Rukia anymore, because Rukia took Shigeno Hanaretsu's hand and walked into the room without any intention of leaving a back door for Minato. Minato had no choice but to go back to the room by himself. In the room, Minato communicated with the system. System, can my friend of women not work on women who are hundreds of years old? The system said directly after hearing this. This system doesn't know what you are talking about. Minato was completely helpless and had to lie down on the bed and fall asleep. The next morning, Minato was awakened by a knock on the door, and then heard a gentle female voice saying, "Minato, get up quickly, it's time for breakfast." Minato heard someone outside the door calling him. Minato quickly put on his clothes and walked out of the room, just seeing two women already sitting at the dining table waiting for him, so he went into the bathroom, washed his face and walked out. After breakfast, the three of them walked to the Hokage's office and heard many villagers whispering. Some Konoha civilians saw Minato and said, "Hello, Hokage. Hello, fourth Hokage. Hello, Hokage is so amazing." Of course, there are also some who say, Minato is actually followed by two great beauties. After all, Rukia and Shigeno Hanaretsu are so eye-catching that it is hard not to attract everyone's attention. The three of them arrived at the Hokage's office. When Yuzuki Yugao saw the three of them coming, she greeted them respectfully and said, "Hokage." Minato nodded slightly and motioned for him to stand up and talk. At this time, Yuzuki Yugao saw Minato looking at her and lowered her head quickly, because every time she saw Minato, she instinctively wanted to get close to him. "Although I'm single now, I can't go find another man so quickly. It's true that Gekugale is dead, but I'm still his girlfriend in name. Even if I want to find a man, it will take some time." Minato ignored the dazed Yuzuki Yugao, and took Rukia and Yuzuki Yugao into the Hokage's office. Hanaretsu noticed, "There is a bunch of documents on the desk. I'm curious, so I picked them up and took a look. I saw that it recorded some things that happened on the border of Konoha village." At this time, there was a knock on the door outside. Minato and the other two looked at each other, wondering who it could be so early. Chapter 80. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So Minato cleared his throat. "Come in." Then he saw Uzumaki Naruto and a middle-aged white-haired uncle walking in. When the two approached, Naruto greeted the three with a smile on his face. "Good morning, Dad, Sister Rukia, and this sister." Jiraiya next to Naruto looked at Shigeno Hanaretsu next to Minato with curiosity, and gave Minato a thumbs up. Seeing this, Minato shook his head helplessly and said, "Teacher Jiraiya, are you and Naruto here for something?" Jiraiya fumbled out a notice from his arms, which clearly stated that a reward was offered for the wanted Namikaze Minato. Jiraiya's face showed a solemn expression and slowly said, "Do you know who offered the reward for you?" Rukia and Uzumaki Naruto on the side showed worry in their eyes, fearing that Minato would be in danger. On the other side, Mamano Hanaretsu was very calm about this, because she could vaguely feel that Minato's strength was not weaker than hers, and even stronger than her. Minato saw that everyone was worried and quickly comforted them, saying, "Don't you know my strength? How can a bunch of rabble like them hurt me? That's true. After all, you are my proudest apprentice." Jiraiya said slowly. Jiraiya thought of Minato killing the third Hokage and Shimura Danzo killing the two Hokage advisors of Konoha. Jiraiya really didn't know what kind of person could kill Minato. After all, Konoha village has 4 Kage-level strongmen. Although the other two may no longer have the strength of Kage-level strongmen, they are not comparable to ordinary Shizen Jonin, not to mention the other two. One is the third Hokage, the strongest Hokage in the history of Konoha village, and is also his teacher. As for that guy Shimura Danzo, he has the cells of the first generation plus S, and the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan, so how can you fight him? Unless you turn on the Sage mode, it is impossible for you to solve the battle as easily as Minato. Minato saw that everyone fell into silence, so he said, I know this organization. Several people showed curiosity when they heard it and didn't understand how Minato knew it. Then they heard Minato say, speaking of Jiraiya, you have been traveling in the ninja world for so many years, so you must have heard of the Akatsuki organization. Several people around were a little curious when they heard it, because they really hadn't heard of this organization. This is because Rukia has just arrived in the ninja world for only half a month, not to mention Shige no Hanaretsu. Minato just summoned it to the Naruto world yesterday, and as for Naruto, let alone, he is just a little kid. Jiraiya showed a solemn expression on his face and said slowly, this organization seems to have been established 5 or 6 years ago. It is said that it was first established in the land of rain. Minato nodded slightly and said, Teacher, you are right. The Akatsuki organization was indeed established 5 or 6 years ago, but do you know who established the Akatsuki organization? I have an unexpected news here. Do you want to hear it? That when several people heard what Minato said, they all became interested and looked at Minato. Minato stopped talking to everyone and said slowly. Because according to what I learned some time ago, the people who established the Akatsuki organization were the 3 children you took in the Rain Village. Jiraiya fell into memories after hearing this, and after a while he came back to his senses and said, could the 3 children you mentioned be Nagato, Yahiko, and Konan? Minato nodded slightly and continued, Naruto, how have you been training with Jiraiya teacher during this period of time? Naruto was excited when he heard his father asking about his training results. Dad, I have practiced a lot with the lecherous sage during this period of time. You see, I have also learned your famous skill, the A-level ninjutsu Rasengan. Naruto said as he circulated the majestic chakra in his body. In the blink of an eye, a basketball-sized Rasengan condensed in his hand. Seeing Minato looking at his Rasengan, he couldn't help but say with some pride, how's it going, Dad? It's okay. Minato nodded slightly and said, well done. Then he continued, go. Find Kakashi. Naruto was a little surprised to hear this and didn't understand why his father asked him to find Kakashi. Naruto still showed a serious look on his face and knelt on one knee and said, yes. Lord Hokage. Then he slowly retreated and went to find Kaka. At this time, Jiraiya, who had been silent all the time, looked at Shigenohana Retsu and asked Minato. Who is this? Minato introduced, this is Shigenohana Retsu, Captain Shigenohana. At this time, Shigenohana Retsu, who had been silent all the time, also showed Jiraiya a gentle smile. On the other side, Kakashi and Sasuke were training ninjutsu. Kakashi held his hand, and there were waves of air gathering in his palm. Soon, a scene that shocked Sasuke appeared. What Kakashi condensed in his hand was the Rasengan, and Sasuke, who was standing by, was so shocked that he couldn't speak. This is it. Kakashi saw Sasuke's shocked expression and slowly explained, this is Minato's Rasengan. After a while, Sasuke was surprised and said, but Kakashi teacher, why have I never seen you use it? Kakashi shook his head and said, when Sasuke was fighting with the demon Zabuza, you once asked me where I got the Sharingan. That was given to me by a close friend of mine. Then why can you use the Rasengan now, Kakashi teacher? Kakashi glanced at Sasuke, and then said, as the second young master of the Uchiha clan, you should know that if the Uchiha clan's Sharingan is not of the bloodline of the Uchiha clan, there is no way to close the Sharingan. Sasuke understood a little after hearing this and took over the conversation. So, Mr. Kakashi, you have been covering your left eye because you don't want people to see the 3 Magatama Sharingan in your eye. Kakashi nodded and said, Sasuke, you don't have the wind attribute, so I can't give you the Rasengan, but I can give you some combat experience. As he said this, Kakashi waved at Sasuke, signaling him to attack. Seeing this, Sasuke did not hesitate to attack Kakashi with a kunai in his hand. For a while, the weapons of the other party collided with each other, making a roar of metal collision. With every collision of the 2 weapons, sparks would be aroused. As the battle between the 2 continued, wounds of varying sizes appeared on Sasuke's body, and his body had reached its limit. A pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan could no longer be maintained. Kakashi saw this and slowly put away the kunai, walked towards Sasuke who was covered with scars on the side, and supported Sasuke who was about to fall to the ground and asked, "Are you okay?" Sasuke felt like cursing when he heard that, but he still managed to answer, "I'm fine, Kakashi-sensei." Naruto Uzumaki's voice came from not far away, "Kakashi-sensei, Hokage asked you to go to the Hokage's office." Kakashi nodded, "Naruto, please take care of Sasuke for me first, I'll go to the Hokage's office." After saying that, he left without waiting for Naruto's response. Naruto, who was holding Sasuke, saw the wound on Sasuke's body that was still bleeding, and couldn't help but take a breath. He complained in his heart, "This is too cruel." On the other side, Kakashi went to the Hokage building, and when he entered the Hokage's office, he saw Minato and others and bowed and said, "Teacher, you are looking for me." Minato nodded and asked, "How have you and Sasuke been training these days?" "Sasuke's overall strength has become much stronger these days.